Hi again, friends. It's Sharon from Mad Paper Crush here, and today I wanted to make this fun little do-si-do journal. So it is a little bit longer of a project, so I've broken the video up into a couple of parts, but what we're going to do is we're going to make this sort of two-sided journal. So on one side here, there's a cover, and when you open it up, there is sort of your standard journal. So we have regular junk journal looking pages on this side. And then there are a couple pockets in the front here. Whoops, a couple pockets in the front, a pocket in the back. But when you flip the journal over, there's another cover here. And this side reveals, well, you could do it as another journal, but I decided to kind of do it more of a folio type thing. So there's a little tuck spot here. This flips open. There's a tuck spot here, here. There's a tuck spot here. This comes all the way out. There's a tuck spot here. There is an envelope here where you can put things in right there. And then this flips over and there is a tuck spot, or I'm sorry, a little pocket here, a little pocket here. And then there's even a pocket right here that has a little window on that. So this is a fun little do-si-do journal that we're going to be making, and I hope that you'll join me. So let's get started. All right, let's talk about what we need for this project. So the base pieces, I'm going to be using packaging cardboard. So these were just old boxes of different things that, I had purchased for the kitchen. I think this was fabric softener sheets. That was a box for that. So it's a pretty thin cardboard, but it'll be a good base for us. So you're going to need to do the do-si-do journal. You're going to need 3 pieces that are, if you want to do the same size as me, 3.5 by 6 inches. So 3.5 inches wide, and our journal will be 6 inches tall. So I have 3 of those pieces cut and ready to go. And then I'm going to be using some cardstock and just some lighter paper for covering and for adding the flips and things like that to the one side of the journal. So I'm going to be using my Moody Blues kit. And I've printed off a couple of pieces that I liked in just a presentation weight paper. So this is just a little heavier than copier paper, but it's very lightweight. So I'll probably use this to cover these pieces because I want something that's relatively easy to fold there. And then for the flips and things like that, I printed out cardstock, the same kit, Moody Blues kit, but I printed it double-sided because this one will need to, if you see the other side, you don't want it to be white. So I printed the same kit, double-sided. I just printed different, sides of the pages on each one. So I'd have a good selection of cardstock pages. And this is heavier weight that I'll be using to do the flip. So this is like, I think 110-pound cardstock. So it's much heavier. It'll be easier to make those flips and have them be sturdy and things like that. So you need some papers for sure. And then I think I'm going to be using this canvas. It's like a blue duck cloth canvas type material for kind of my spine book cloth here. So we're going to see how that works out. I'm probably going to be using some gaffer tape. This is just, it's kind of like masking tape, but it's a little bit thicker and it's not quite as sticky. I'll probably be using this for the inside of my spine. Now, you might not want to use something like this because it is sticky and, you'll have to run your needle through it, and if you're concerned about that or whatever, you may not want to do that. I don't have a problem doing that. I can clean off my needles. It's not a big deal. So I'll probably be using this because this will also add some stability to our spine. And then, of course, a needle and thread, as I just mentioned, to sew in the signature that we're going to be putting in. I, of course, will be using some glues, probably my Beacon 3-in-1 glue and possibly my glitter glue as well. So I will link those 2 glues down below if you're interested in what exactly they are. And then, of course, I'll need, a cutter. I'll probably be using my pencil, all those little things that you kind of need as you're going. I have also prepared a signature for the front side of the do-si-do journal. So this signature is, I just have some coffee dyed papers and some music papers and some old book pages. There's a little bit of Tim Holtz paper in here. another one of my Moody Blues papers that I cut down to size, and just some vintage ledger paper here. And I've already dressed them up with pockets and things like that. You can get this ready, you know, on your own. If you'd like to see how I put together signatures, I will link one of those down below, a video to help you with that. And this one, I believe, has 10 pages. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages. I lied. So it has 9 pages. So 9 or 10 pages, I think, is plenty for this. That'll give you, you know, some decent thickness for our signature. And I think that's about it. So let's go ahead and get started. I was just trying to make sure there's not anything else I need, but if there is, I'll definitely let you know as we get there. Okay, let's go ahead and get this Do-Si-Do journal going. Okay, so the first thing we're going to do is cover our pieces here. And as I was kind of cutting these pieces, I realized that this piece, which is a different kind than these two of packaging, cardboard packaging, is a little bit thinner. So, and that's okay, but I think I'm going to make this my middle piece. So the thicker pieces I'm going to have be my cover and my back cover. So I'm going to use these two for the front and back cover, and this one for the middle. And so all I'm going to do is I picked out a couple of the lighter weight printouts that I have, and I'm going to decide, you know, what pieces I want to have as my front and my back. So if you're using a digital kit like mine, you could definitely do something where you could pick somewhere on these papers so that you didn't have to add too much to make it a cover if you didn't want to, but you could also just, you know, get a base piece going so that you could add something on top, which is what I think I'm going to do. So I'm going to just choose some spots on these digital papers where I think it'll be a nice cover. So here's one. I love this blue and then the handwriting down here. And I want to be sure that there's enough room to give me at least a 1/2 inch all the way around so that I can fold it in and fold it over. So I think this is going to be one of them. And then I was even thinking that this, although I'm probably going to cut off the birds, which is, you know, is what it is sometimes. I was thinking that might be fun, but let me look at this one because I definitely like this for one of the pieces. And I think my back cover I'm going to be less decorative on because, you know, it's probably going to be laying on that side a lot, but I still want it to look nice. So that being said, I could use this again and get the top of these birds in and then have, you know, my 1/2 inch around to turn over, and that might be a nice kind of back cover. I think I might do that. And then my middle piece, I'm just going to use, I think, where it has most of this blue, because my middle piece on the side of the front side, I'm probably just going to be adding a pocket or something like that. So I want to kind of have something there that I can use to put additional things on. So I think this is where I'm going to go. So I'm going to, with my pencil, I'm just going to mark, since I just need an approximate amount, I'm going to mark approximately where I need to cut. And this one, you know, I just need to go to the end of the blue, and that'll give me about a 1/2 inch on either side there. And then if I hold it here for the height of it, I can just mark maybe right there. Now I want to cut these apart before I do it because I don't want to make this too small. So I want to get the top of this bird for sure on this one. And so I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm just going to give myself a little extra room, and then I'm going to see about how I need to cut those off. So I'm going to cut the long ways first so that I don't miss any of the height for either of them. And actually, I'm just going to go ahead and cut those 2 pieces right now. And we'll set that aside. That's a nice little piece. And then I'm going to cut the bottom off so that covers that piece. And this one will cover this piece. And they were actually pretty close, I think, but better to do things one at a time, I think. Oh, and before I let the cutter go, okay, so that's these pieces. So I'm just going to kind of set them aside. And then for my middle piece here, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm just going to kind of give myself, you know, the basics of what I need to cover this piece. And now if you'll notice, we're going to be doing something on the inside of all of these, or on both sides of all of these, because the middle piece really doesn't have an inside or an outside. But I want to at least cover one side for now. So let me put these aside, and I'm going to cover this one last, because the other thing that I might want to do before I cover it is add something to this. I'm not sure though yet. So let's put that down there. And then what we're going to do is we're going to cover these pieces. So a lot of times what I like to do when I have cardboard like this that is coated, I like to just take my craft knife and add a little bit, I try not to go too deep, a little bit of markings on here so that the glue will really grab on here. So I'm actually going to do that for both pieces so that it's ready to go. And I'm not doing it on the other side because the other side's not coated, and I think the glue will grab it just fine. Okay, and so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to glue this down right in the middle, and then we'll cut the corners and start folding everything in. So for this, I am going to use my Beacon 3-in-1 glue. And I am going to, this paper is 32-pound paper, and it's really a nice thickness. So you don't have to worry too much about the glue like either showing through or running through on this. But what I might do after I put the glue on here, just to be on the safe side, and it seems like my glue is a little bit cold. It doesn't want to come out too fast, it doesn't seem like. Is I may just with my finger real quick just kind of run over all of this to flatten it out just a little bit. But like I said, I'm not real worried about this because this paper is pretty good. Okay, get that glue off my finger. And then we'll just take a look. And then if you have a bone folder or a credit card, you know, just do a couple of runs with that to make sure everything is nice and flat on the other side. So, and hopefully, I just realized that I barely got the top of that bird, but that's okay. I'm okay with him because he's still going to be showing on there. So that's good. All right. Now let's do the other front piece. This one I think this is probably going to be my back cover, and this is going to be my front cover, I think. So we're going to do the same thing here. Try and get this glue running. I don't know if you guys save cardboard like I do. My poor husband is always like, can I throw this away? Please, can I throw this away? And a lot of times I'm like, no, you cannot. All right. So same thing. I'm just going to do a quick little run here. And then I'm just going to eyeball that in the center. And this one, I didn't need to look too much at the front because there wasn't something I was aiming for. But I am going to just smooth it down a little with my bone folder again. Make sure I got good coverage or good adhesive on there the whole way. All right, and then for these, let's see. All I'm going to do is, you've probably seen me cut a corner before, is I'm basically going to, get my pencil out there. I want to miter each of these corners a little bit away from the corner. So I don't want to cut all the way to the corner because I won't have some overlap to cover the corner. So when you're making a miter, you want to come away from the corner just about the thickness of the material that you've glued down there. So the thickness of my cardboard away is where I want to cut down. So I'm just kind of drawing these lines just so you can kind of see how I'm going to cut it, but I'm just going to miter in from the corner, making sure I stay away from the corner about the thickness, maybe a little bit more of the cardboard, and then come out the other side. So I've done this enough times that I don't usually have to draw those lines, but if you're uncomfortable, it's always a good idea to have them there as a guide. So you can see I'm cutting in, and then once I get to the corner, then I'm just turning and mitering the other way. So you kind of miter down to the corner and then cut it up the other side. So now I'm just going to eyeball it down to the corner and up to the other side. And we're going to do this on both pieces. Okay. And then once we start gluing this down, if you haven't done this before, you'll kind of see why we have to leave a little bit of space there in the corner. Okay, so now the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to kind of go around, because this is a little bit heavier paper, I want to kind of train the paper to fold on the edge of the cardboard there where I'm going to be gluing again. So I'm just against the mat here, I'm just kind of folding it down so that my paper knows where it needs to go. So let's go ahead and do the back one first. And I am going to probably, I don't know if I need I'm going to try and use my bone folder. This one's a little bit fat. I may just try and use one of these. I'm not sure if that'll work, but this is what we're going to do. So I'm going to start on the tops and the bottoms. So the smaller pieces first, we're just going to glue those down. I'm going to make sure I have glue along the edge of the cardboard. And this one, I'm not concerned about flattening it out because we're going to be covering this with more paper on the other side as well. Okay. Okay, now we're going to glue the sides, and I'm going to do one at a time. I'm just going to do one sort of very detailed, and then I'm going to do the other ones. I'll speed them up so they don't have to watch them all, but I do want to show you how I fold over the paper on the edges. So the first thing I'm going to do is add the glue like I did on the other sides, making sure I have some all along this edge. And I do want to kind of be sure that I get all the way up into the corners here by the edge of these little, they look like they're overhangs. And then what I'm going to do before I fold them is I'm just going to take my fingernail and just kind of press these in right along the edge of the cardboard like that. And like I said, I was going to try to use this, my bone folder to do that. You can kind of press them in, but this bone folder is kind of thick for this small amount. And then very carefully, after you press those sides in, you can fold over your edge. And then once you do that, let me let it stick, and then we'll kind of show you the end result. So you can see, hopefully you can see, that's a nice clean edge on the front and the back, and the whole corner is covered, which is what I want. So if you cut too close to the cardboard in the corner, you might have some brown cardboard sticking out there, and obviously we don't want that. We want those nice clean edges. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do this piece, this other side, and then this other piece, and I'll speed this up, but you can still watch what I'm doing as I go through this. Okay, our front and back are covered, and I'm leaving them to dry. I really like the way they look so far. And then I'm going to go ahead and cover this one. Now, I didn't add my marks to this one, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. But we're going to cover this one just exactly the same as we did the other two. So I was thinking about adding something before, but because I have to fold this over, it's just you know, too much brain power for me right now. So I'm just going to cover this one, the middle piece, the same exact way as I did the other two. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll be right back with all three covers, and we'll move on to the next step. Okay, my three covers and middle, two covers in the middle, are done. And I want to make sure that I add anything to my front cover that I want to before I start putting it together. I was thinking I might sew on this, and I can, you know, this is relatively thin cardboard. I could sew through it if I wanted to. So I went and grabbed some other pieces that I thought might be fun to make a cover, and I got a label because labels go everywhere. And I have some scrap book page left over here, and I found this little fussy cut flower that I thought would be great against the blues and everything that are going on. But because I thought that the book page was kind of blending in there, I just found a plain blue piece of cardstock, and I thought I would kind of mat it with that. So I'm just going to real close to the edge, because I don't want this to get too big, and I'm just going to kind of mark where I think we might need to cut, and I'm going to try to leave it maybe just a little bit bigger than not, because I don't want to, you know, can't make a piece of paper bigger, but you can make one smaller. So if I leave it a little big, then if I need to cut it down, I will have the room to do that. So let's see how this looks if I put this right on there. And actually, I don't mind if it hangs over just a teeny bit. You can see there. I really like the way that looks. I think I'm going to add some distress to the book page and probably to the little fussy cut there. So let me grab my ink. And I need to get some new vintage photo. I don't know, this is just a archival ink Ranger coffee, and I like this one too. So I've been using this one now that it seems like my vintage photo is kind of out. So I don't know. I think you can get refills for them, so I may try to do that. And now while I do this, I'm just going to add a little bit of distress around the front as well. And this I don't think I will add any distress to. But the flower, I definitely, there's some pieces that weren't cut out. So I'm just going to very carefully try to get a little bit of distress on there because I don't want them to be so white, but I don't want to cover up too much of the flower. And then I'm going to maybe try to hit some of these edges, as many as I can without tearing it apart. This was a pretty delicate cutout. I used my silhouette machine. So it did a great job, but it made it very delicate. So let's see. I think for this I will use my art glitter glue. Oh, I want to be sure I get that. There was a little tear in this. Of course, I don't want to get my finger on that. So I really want to get the edges on this one. And I need to get that piece of glue, a little bit of glue off my finger. Okay. Now for this same kind of thing, I'm just going to work as much as I can getting all the pieces as best I can. Mostly the edges and the little pieces are what I'm most concerned with here. Let's see how I did. And I like it. Some of the glue's coming out a little bit, so we definitely will need to let that dry. And while that's drying, I will just kind of add a little bit of distress to my label here. And this is from my vintage label set digital kit. It has a lot of different varieties and a lot of different colors. This one's is the blue, the sheet of blue labels. Okay, let's see. And now just to, you know, I have to say this to remind myself, I have to remember that I'm using this duck cloth here as my spine. So I probably won't be putting it more than, you know, a ½ inch on top here, but I just want to be sure my collage and things that I've done for my front cover aren't, you know, like going to be in the way of that. So all right, so that's what I'm thinking for the front cover. Now, like I said, I was going to do some sewing, but since I'm not going to do some sewing, I think I'm going to hold off on putting it on because I want to wait and see, you know, where my spine cloth is going to be going, because then I might, you know, end up putting it in a different, you know, spot or something. So who knows? I don't know. There's a lot I could do here for sure. All right, so I'm just going to set these aside to dry, but we'll remember that these are going to be for my cover piece, and then we'll move on to the next step of putting this journal together. Okay, we're going to start putting our spines together, but I wanted to just tell you that I decided to use some fabric instead of just the paper and the gaffer tape. So I'm going to still use the gaffer tape. I was thinking that it might be too black, but as long as I keep this to the outside, I think we'll be fine, because the inside of this gaffer tape is white. So I think it'll be still a good, you know, nice sturdy thing to use. So I went into my scraps and I found this blue floral fabric that I think would match really nicely with the blues that we have going on in our book here. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to, and this is just a torn piece, and it is torn at about 2 inches, which actually, as I think what the gaffer tape is, it's a 2-inch tape. So you don't have to be this exact. If your fabric is wider than your tape, that's okay. If you want to just glue a piece of scrapbook paper on the back of here for some stability, you can do that too. I like this because it's not paper. It kind of is more flexible than what I think the paper would be. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to, before I cut any of that, I'm going to cut this down. Okay, I'm going to cut this down, sorry about that, to the size of the spines first. And because I love to have a torn edge, I'm going to tear it down to that size. So all I'm going to do that is I'm going to hold up the fabric to my cover, and then I'm just going to make a little tiny cut, oops, as long as things don't move around, there, so that I can tear it apart. So then this will be one of my spines, and then I will need to do one more of those. We'll need 2 spine pieces to hold everything together. So I'm just grabbing another one. It doesn't really matter. I could have used the same cover to do this. This one has a little bit of a wrinkle in it, but I think that'll be okay. I'm just going to try and hold it a little bit flat, because once I glue it down, that wrinkle will go away. Okay, so let me get some of these extra strings off. All right, now what I'm going to do before I attach anything is I'm going to add some of this gaffer tape. Now, like I said, the tape I think is about 2 inches, but because this is torn on the edges, I may cut this down just a little bit to be sure that it doesn't stick out the edges. But once again, it doesn't really matter because the edges will be hidden. You don't want it to stick up the top though, because the top won't be hidden. So I'm just kind of measuring this piece of fabric, and it should be about 6 inches tall, and it is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this down to a little bit less than 6 inches, just a teeny bit less. So I'm going to put that there, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm going to cut this. I should use my sticky scissors cutters. And looks like I did pretty good. Actually, it looks like I got really close to 6 inches. So I'm going to take off another maybe 1/8 of an inch or so from here. And the thing I like about this gaffer tape is it's sticky, but it's not like really sticky. So it's easy to pull it off of something if you've put it down already. Oh, and the other thing that I wanted to possibly do is cut it down this way. So because it's, like I said, close to 2 inches, I'm going to grab my rotary cutter, and I'm just going to take off about 1/8 of an inch from the width as well. So it's a little less than 6 inches high, and now it's a little less than 6 inches, or I'm sorry, 2 inches wide. So you can see how it was kind of easy to pull up, and obviously the more I stick it to things and remove it from things, the harder it's going to be to get it to stick down. But I could use like I could use a glue actually to stick this down. Now, as I'm going towards the edge, I'm kind of noticing that it's longer than the piece that I have, because I did start down from this edge a little bit. So before I stick it all the way down, I'm just going to cut off a little bit more. So you can see how exact this is. Okay, so now I have my little piece here of tape with my fabric, and this was the piece that had a wrinkle in it, and it's not there anymore, so that's good. Okay, so this is going to be one of my spines, and when I do this, now let me just kind of show you what I'm talking about. So this is my front piece, and this is my middle piece. So we're going to take one of our spines and go like this to hook everything together. So as you can see, if you're folding it over, you would be able to see the black on the spine itself, but because I'm going to be using that canvas to cover everything at the end, I don't need to worry about that. And the other thing is maybe we'll cover it. Well, I don't know how well this will cover the black. I don't know. Maybe we'll use this a little bit more decorative one. I'm not sure yet. So, but we're going to do something. But this is going to be one of our spines, and we're going to do the same thing with this one. I'm going to cut down a 6-inch, a little less than 6-inch, and I think we can go not a lot less, but a lot more than I thought. So if I started here, I'm going to take it back to like 5.5, maybe, because the other thing is, you know, where my spine holes are, I'm not going to get too close to the edge either. So, okay, so let's put this down and do the same thing with this one. We're going to take off a little bit off the side here. So we have that done. Where's my trash can? And I'm going to pull this up again. And we'll add this piece to this one in the same way. Try and get it centered there. So, whoops, doesn't look like it's straight. Try that again. See what I did. I'm gonna try it this way. That looks a little better. Okay. Great. Now we have our spines ready to go. All right, now we're going to start attaching the book or getting it put together. So let me get some of this put away here. All right, so what you're going to need is your front piece, your middle piece, and one of the spines. That's where we're going to start. So now what I'm going to do is I want to measure where I'm going to do this. Now I'm grabbing my signature. This signature is not, you know, it's not huge, so we don't need a 2-inch spine, although, you know, you could do that if you wanted to do that. We're going to do a little smaller one here. So what I'm going to do is I'm probably only going to give this about maybe 1, 2, 3, maybe 3/8 of an inch. I think 1/4 of an inch would be a little too small, and I'm thinking that a 1/2 inch might be a little too big. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just kind of put this in the center. I'm going to mark my center, and hopefully I can see with this pencil. Actually, I'm going to grab my white grease pencil here, and I'm just going to mark my centers. I always put things away when I need them again. So I'm just going to mark my center so I know where that is. And this will also be helpful when I'm sewing. Okay, so I know where my center is. And then I'm just going to mark my 3/8 of an inch on for around it. So let's see, 1, 2. So I kind of have to mark this. I have to go 1/8 and a 1/16 on one side, and then 1/8 and a 1/16 on the other side. And I'm actually thinking that that does look a little small. So we're going to widen it up to a 1/2 inch. So I'm marking 1/4 of an inch on either side of my center line. And then I'm also going to mark that. Okay, now we're going to glue it down, and it might seem a little counterintuitive what I'm doing right now, but because I want the flower material to sort of be on the inside and the gaffer tape to be on the outside, we're going to do something a little different to glue this down. So I'm going to lay my piece down on my board here, kind of lining it up square, and then I'm going to apply my glue to the outside edges here, leaving the inside 1/2 inch that we marked with no glue. Now, because this is going to kind of be the outside of the spine, what I'm going to do is I'm taking my front cover, okay, with the good side facing up, and we're going to glue it down over here, just like that. And for the middle piece, because the middle piece I want to be on the inside, the nice side of the middle piece to be on the inside of my first journal, do-si-do journal part, I'm going to glue this down face down like this. So that's how we're going to glue this down so that our spine, this is the outside of our spine, of our first spine. Okay, so that's kind of how we're going to do this. So I'm going to I'm also going to try to just line this up in, because my gaffer tape is a little bit smaller, you know, than 6 inches because we cut it down. I kind of want to be sure that I know where along the bottom line to glue these down so that they're even. So if I glue them down with the bottom of the cover along this line, I should be good to go, and that should be pretty well centered. So I'm going to carefully move these off, leaving my spine where it is here, and I'm just going to do these one at a time so that it is a little bit easier. I'm just going to add the glue to the gaffer tape here, and it is moving a little, I'm noticing, so I am going to be careful when I put this down. So I'm just going to make sure I have most of this covered. I definitely want to be sure that kind of along the spine line, I have that covered. Let me get this back into position here. And then I'm going to go ahead and put this down. And it's very slippery. So I'm going to take my time here. I think I'm going to let this dry so that I don't bump it at all. And then we'll do the other side. Okay. I don't think it's totally dry, but I'm just going to be careful here as I do my other side. I did let it go for a little while, and it is drying up, but it's not totally dry. But if you are as patient as I am, which is not really at all, then you'll start the other side with me. No idea where my lid just went. Oh, there it is. Okay, so now the middle, we want to glue down this way. Once again, I'm lining them up at the bottom here to make sure they are pretty well in line. You can see that one's still moving. That one's still moving. Everything's still moving. Okay. Let's definitely give this a good, I don't know, 5-10 minutes and make sure this gets nice and dry before we move on here.